British Columbia's New Democrats have formally been around since 1961, and since then they've contested 15 general elections with a record of 3 wins, 11 losses, and while I'm not really sure what to call 2017 as they didn't win the most seats, nor the most votes, but thanks to the Green Party, the NDP is now in government for just their 4th term since they were officially created in 1961. The NDP have never fared well in government, however. They were a one-term wonder under Dave Barrett from 72 to 75. Then, during the decade of darkness of the 1990s, they did manage to win 2 straight elections, the second by the skin of their teeth. But they had to have both their leaders and premiers who won those elections resign in disgrace. And it all culminated in the worst electoral defeat in British Columbia history when the BC NDP were reduced to just 2 seats in the 2001 election. And let's be brutally honest, the reason why this is the case is the people who inevitably end up in these NDP governments are usually inept, lack real-world private sector experience, and are complete ideological partisans who never look out for the people who put them in power, but simply for their friends of the same ideological partisanship. It's what brought down Premier Mike Harcourt, Premier Glenn Clark, and I believe it is what will bring down Premier John Horgan and his NDP government before a full term can be completed. So today, I'll acquaint you with 2 key members of John Horgan's NDP cabinet, Attorney General David Eadie and Finance Minister Carol James, both familiar faces to British Columbians. But for anyone fearful of NDP ideology, these are both 2 destroyers to watch out for. I brought you the exclusive story of David Eadie's flirtation with one of the most radical environmental activist groups the world has seen during the last election. So our new Attorney General, who will be in office while countless protests and attempts to stop work on everything across the province from Site C to wood fiber LNG and of course the Kinder Morgan pipeline, and our brand new AG, the top lawyer in the province, will know all about the tactics the protesters will be using because he learned how to do it himself at that conference. Make sure you check out my entire video on Eadie. There's a lot more there, especially on Earth First, including their sanctioning of one of the worst eco-terror tactics imaginable, tree spiking. So as it stands, the way I see it is protesters will have free rein to do whatever they want in the province, and the cops won't be allowed to do anything about it. And that's because Eadie has a long history of questioning and even condemning the police. During the 2010 Olympics, Eadie was very critical of the police, which, if you were there like I was, trying to enjoy 2 weeks of the most amazing Canadian nationalism and patriotism I've ever seen, you'd know the cops did a great job. It was radical Antifa activists using black bloc tactics the first weekend that smashed up shops downtown, and I actually think the cops were too restrained. His criticism back then brought strong words from Tom Stamakis, the president of the Vancouver Police Union in 2010, stating, quote, "David Eadie never let the facts or context get in the way of their ongoing smear campaign aimed at the hardworking men and women of the Vancouver Police Department." At the time, Eadie was executive director of the BC Civil Liberties Association. But if that isn't bad enough, David Eadie wrote a book on how to sue cops in small claims court. So you have to imagine now the average cop in BC, who now has someone overseeing them who literally wrote the book on how activists should sue them. What a world. Perhaps an even more familiar face to British Columbians, and in an even bigger position, is the new Finance Minister Carol James. James, who led the BC NDP from 2003 until 2010, was a 2-time loser as leader, yet like so many New Democrats, they don't really seem to move on to other things in the private sector after their crack at politics. So James brings with her years of experience as an MLA, and before that, working for the Victoria School Board for 11 years. But frighteningly, she has precisely 0 private sector experience, no past running a company or small business, and now she's in charge of running a multi-billion-dollar finance ministry. I totally expected James to be put in cabinet given her aforementioned experience as MLA and her time as leader, but finance is not exactly Miss James' forte. During the campaign, James contradicted her own party's position when she stated that MSP premiums would be rolled into income taxes. But then shortly after, John Horgan had to deny that. Carol James does love higher taxes though. I mean, how else are they going to pay, or at least try to pay, for all these ridiculous spending promises they're making? During the campaign, Vaughn Palmer of the Vancouver Sun reported that James stated, quote, "It would surprise no one that we're going to take a look at taking that tax break back," unquote. James was speaking of the BC Liberals' recent elimination of the top tax bracket for high income earners. So just what a precarious minority government needs to help ensure continued economic confidence in BC. a finance minister who isn't entirely clear on their own policies or how they'll pay for things. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson. Make sure you check out all my videos on this new batch of destroyers with the BC NDP. But if you have the time and a little extra money sitting around, please consider chipping in to spearkids.com. We're raising money for the victims of Omar Khadr's terrorism.